Hello everyone, this is Mr. Navratil here. Today we are going to be taking a look at how to create an Autodesk assembly file. And what we're looking at right now is actually the wooden pin puzzle, and this is made up of 9 different parts put together in one file. We have our block down here, and then we have 8 separate pins that all fit into the holes in the top of that block. So to create this and get them all into the same file, we're going to start off like we normally do. We're going to come up to File, and we'll hit New. Now, typically we're used to clicking on standard.ipt. This is how you create just a single file in Autodesk Inventor. We're going to want to use the standard.iam. This is the assembly file that we're going to use. And we'll hit Create. Now, just like before, it kind of shows up with just a blank environment for us. To begin with, we need to start placing the pieces that we're going to be assembling into this blank environment. So on the top left, you'll find this Place button here. We're going to click on that. And I already have this open, but you should have one folder that holds all of the different pieces that you're going to be putting together. We're going to want to start with just the base, which is the wood pin puzzle here. So I'll hit Open. And you can see this is really zoomed in at the moment, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to click once. Now, Autodesk Inventor, when you're placing things, is going to ask, well, how many do you want to place in at a time? For us, we only want to place just the one. So instead of clicking again, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to hit OK, and that will end that tool. So now we have our block, so we can start adding in the pins so that we can put them in the holes on the top. So same process, we're going to come up to Place in the top left, and I'm going to start off with pin 1. I'll hit Open, and then I can just place this over to the side. Now this is absolutely important. You cannot accidentally place in multiples of the same pin. Each of these pins is a very specific different length, so you don't want to add in extras of the same one. So we're going to right click and hit OK. So there's our pin 1, and here's our block. What we need to try and figure out how to do now is take this pin and put it inside the hole. So to do that, we're going to be adding 2 different constraints to this piece, and we're going to be using the Constrain tool to do that. So I'm going to click on Constrain, and the first one that I want to take care of is getting the axis of the pin and the axis of the hole aligned. So if I come over and I find the axis, I can highlight that and click there. And then I'm going to come over to the hole and I'm going to find the axis. Now you have to be careful. You cannot click on the rim where that green dot shows up. You have to make sure you're clicking on the axis. And we'll hit that and then hit OK. So that's great. We have them lined up now. If you click and drag, you can see that the axis is in fact aligned. Problem is the pin needs to stop at a very specific point, which is the bottom of that hole. So we're going to add in a second constraint. I am going to click and drag this a little bit out of the way so that we can see everything. I'm going to come up and I'm going to hit Constrain. We have to tell the program that we'd like the bottom of that pin and the bottom of the hole to be flush. In other words, to be touching. So I'm going to use the FreeOrbit tool so that I can actually see the bottom of this pin. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to kind of highlight where it has this crosshair and this arrow. So I'm going to click there. Now I need to use the FreeOrbit tool so that I'm able to view the bottom of the hole as well. So I'll move that around, and then I'll zoom in just a little bit to make sure I'm getting it, because you do not want to click on the axis. You do not want to click on where the green dot shows up. You want to make sure you're clicking on the bottom of the hole with that crosshair. So I'll click again, and I'll hit OK. So if we zoom out and we change the view a little bit, you can see that the pin has now been fully assembled with the block. If you click on drag on one, both of them are going to move together, which is exactly what we want. So we can do the second pin as another example. We'll come up to Place. We'll find pin 2. We'll hit Open. I'm going to just click once and then right click and hit OK. We're going to use the Constrain tool, highlight the axis and highlight the axis and hit OK. Be careful, don't just move on to the next one from here, because there is a second constraint we have to do. We're going to click and drag this pin out of the way. We're going to hit the Constrain tool again, change the view. We'll click on the bottom of the pin, and then we'll rotate this and we'll click on the bottom of the pin, or I'm sorry, the bottom of the hole there, and hit OK. So if we change our view, we take a look, you can see that both the pins are now aligned, and this is in fact attached to the block. And you'll continue that process for the rest of the pins as they go through. So this has just been a quick introduction on how to do an Autodesk assembly file.